Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Munun Bhattacharya, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel's Iron Dome air defense system intercepts rockets launched by Hezbollah. Israel launches retaliatory strikes in southern Lebanon. Countries urge nationals to leave Lebanon. 7 European Union countries call on Venezuela to publish electoral rolls promptly to ensure full transparency around last weekend's presidential election. At least 20 killed in fresh clashes between police and tens of thousands of protesters in Bangladesh. Government declares curfew. In Paris Olympics, India puts 1 foot forward in the quest for 9th Olympic hockey gold. Shuttler Lakshya Sen loses semis to world number 2. As tensions continue to rise in West Asia, Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system went into action early Sunday, intercepting a barrage of rockets. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden expressed hope that Iran would stand down despite its threat to avenge the assassination of Hamas's leader in Tehran, as fears mounted that Israel-Gaza conflict could escalate into a wider West Asia conflict. Haniyeh's death was one in a series of killings of senior Hamas figures as the Gaza conflict nears its 11th month. Hamas has said it had begun a broad consultation process to choose a new leader. Seeking to bolster defenses in West Asia in response to threats from Israel's foes, the Pentagon said on Friday it would deploy additional fighter jets and Navy warships to the region. Amidst growing tensions in West Asia, foreign governments continue to warn their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately amid fears of an all-out conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. The US and UK issued warnings to citizens in Lebanon to leave the country immediately on Saturday. The US Embassy in Beirut has urged its citizens to leave Lebanon on any ticket available, whereas giving similar warning, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy said that the regional situation could deteriorate rapidly. The recent unrest was triggered by the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on Wednesday and killing of Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr in Beirut. It is feared that the terror group Hezbollah could play a key role in any such retaliation, which in turn could spark a serious Israeli response. And now DD India's Trent Murray joins us live from Beirut. Trent, how are tensions shaping up in West Asia in view of the Hezbollah-Israel tensions and Iran vowing retaliation to Hamas leader Haniyeh's killing?
Yeah, that's right. I think there's still just a sense of anticipation here in Lebanon around what will happen next, given some of the rhetoric that we have heard, of course, from the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, who has vowed that him and his militant group will respond to that airstrike here in Beirut back on Tuesday, which killed one of their most senior military commanders. I think for many Lebanese here in the capital, they are doing their best to go about normality and enjoy their Sunday and weekend, but probably in the back of their mind, they know that this situation could spiral out of control as both sides seem to be ratcheting up both the rhetoric but also their public displays of force. The US obviously sending military assets here to support Israel, and Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel from Lebanon. So look, I think just a sense of unease right now at what could be around the corner, as it really feels like West Asia could just be on the brink of quite a major escalation and even a major war.
Yes, we could come to that. How real is that possibility, Trent, of, like you said, a wider conflict, a major war in West Asia?
Yeah, well, look, I think, we need to remember that since October of last year, Hezbollah and Israel have been trading fire, but it's largely been concentrated on the border regions in the south of Lebanon and in the north of Israel. And what happened on Tuesday here with that airstrike, according to Hezbollah, is that the red lines were crossed and the sort of unwritten rules of engagement between the two sides had been broken, and that is why we're seeing now this escalating rhetoric. So I think the risk is very real here because, of course, we're not just talking about Hezbollah and all of this, but we're talking about that broader axis of resistance, as they call themselves, very much led by Iran. Now, Iran itself is vowing to retaliate against Israel for that strike that we saw in Tehran again early this week, which killed Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. And so right now you just sort of see all these moving pieces right now with the trend line suggesting it's escalating in terms of rhetoric and displays of force rather than subsiding. We understand, of course, diplomats are working desperately to try and defuse those tensions. We know the Egyptians and the Jordanians have been having conversations with the Iranians to try and ask them to not show such a huge show of force here, but we understand the Iranians are not necessarily listening right now. They say they really do want to avenge that hit in Tehran, and so right now everyone just on standby to see what happens next.
Right, Trent, also with several countries urging their nationals to leave Lebanon immediately, are people already scrambling to leave, even as a growing number of flights we know are being cancelled or suspended at the country's own commercial airport, the only one in Beirut?
Yeah, that's right. For people trying to leave, the situation is quite fraught. I wouldn't say that it's a scene of panic or people scrambling to make it to the terminal buildings or anything like that, but it certainly is difficult because you have all of these governments now lining up, telling their foreign nationals to get out immediately, warning them that there could be a crisis around the corner. But at the same time, the number of seats is just not enough. The demand is far outstripping capacity, and that's largely because many major airlines have cancelled their services here. Pretty well all of the Europeans, like British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa, are not flying here because of safety concerns. There really is now only a handful left from the Middle East. And so while you are getting these warnings on one hand, and for people trying to follow that advice, it's difficult to then act on it given that there is just so few flights. As you said, the reason it's a concern is because there is only one functioning commercial airport in all of Lebanon, that is Beirut International Airport. And for people here, they remember back in 2006 when the last war happened, one of the first targets of the IDF was that international airport, and it was out of action for 6 weeks. So I think that's why you're hearing that rhetoric from foreign governments, because they're concerned that if there is a war, the airport could become non-functional, and then you effectively have tens of thousands of foreigners stuck here with nowhere to go, unable to leave.
Trent reporting from Beirut. Far-right activists and anti-racism groups continued to clash in cities across the United Kingdom. In Lancaster, tensions escalated on Sunday as anti-immigration and counter-protesters clashed following the tragic murder of 3 young girls in northwest England. Riots broke out in various towns and cities after misinformation spread on social media claiming that the suspect in the knife attack at a children's dance class in Southport was a radical Muslim immigrant. Authorities have clarified that the suspect, Axel Rudakobana, is a British-born citizen, and despite this, protests have intensified, leading to violence, arson and looting. Interior Minister Vet Cooper condemned the violence and unrest in British cities following the murder of 3 young girls in northwest England earlier in the week. Cooper said that the government fully backed the police and that there were extra prosecutors and also sufficient prison places to deal with those breaking the law.
Well, criminal violence and disorder has no place on Britain's streets. We've been clear to the police that they have our full backing in taking the strongest possible action against perpetrators, including we're making sure that there are more prosecutors, there are sufficient prison places, and also that the courts stand ready, because anyone who engages in this kind of disorder needs to be clear that they will pay the price.
On to another conflict. Russia has captured the settlement in Donetsk region. Meanwhile, Russian authorities reported intercepting dozens of drones over several regions. In Kiev, officials said that Ukraine has carried out attacks on a number of military targets in Russia, including an airfield and oil depots, including in the Belgorod region, killing one woman. Now, the decision of Venezuela's Electoral Council to declare President Nicolás Maduro the winner of the 28th of July election with 51% of the vote has sparked immediate accusations of fraud by the opposition. Protesters continue to protest all across the South American country. 7 European Union countries have jointly called on the Venezuelan authorities to promptly publish the electoral rolls.
Protests against Venezuela's contested national election results have taken a new turn on Saturday when the top opposition figure, Maria Corina Machado, made a surprise appearance in a truck. She joined her supporters protesting in the streets of Caracas as thousands marched all across the South American country. She spent much of the week in hiding after what she said was a threat by Maduro of arrest.
The world knows they intend to forcefully withhold the result. 6 days later, they have not handed over a single record. The period has expired and no pseudo-legal maneuver can cover up the truth. The truth is in our tallies and the fact is in our hearts.
In addition to Caracas, demonstrations took place in Chile's capital, Santiago. Venezuelans across Latin America also took to the streets to protest and demand transparency and justice in their home country's recent election results. Meanwhile, 7 European Union countries, including Italy, France, Germany and Spain, have jointly called on the Venezuelan authorities to promptly publish the electoral rules to ensure full transparency around last weekend's election. Some 2,000 people had been detained in connection to crimes during protest. During a rally in Caracas, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro pledged maximum punishment and accused the detainees of committing serious offences.
We have 2,000 prisoners captured. From there, they go to Tocoron and Tuquiyutu prisons. Maximum punishment, justice. This time, there will be Tocoron prison.
Justicia!
Opposition leader Machado had backed the candidacy of Edmundo González Urrutia after she herself was banned from running, and supporters say he won 67% of the vote. Bureau Report, DD India.
U.S. Vice President and Democratic Party presidential nominee Kamala Harris has rejected Trump's debate proposal on Fox News for the 4th of September. Harris' campaign has countered that Trump was trying to back out of a debate that was already set to run on ABC. Republican presidential nominee and Biden had earlier agreed for a second debate on the 10th of September on ABC News. On Saturday, Trump accused Harris of being afraid to do a debate on the 4th of September. Both candidates have been crisscrossing the country aggressively, with Trump trying out fresh lines of attack against Harris. Time for us to take a breather now. Coming up after that, United Nations delegation starts assessing humanitarian situation in Sudan's Darfur region amid a hunger crisis. Nigeria's president calls for an end to protests around the cost of living crisis. Outbreak of monkeypox in the Democratic Republic of Congo is raising concerns about the spread of the virus globally. Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. In Bangladesh, the government on Sunday imposed curfew for an indefinite period starting 6 p.m. on Sunday in Dhaka and some other parts of the country. Curfew was slapped in Dhaka metropolitan area and all divisional headquarters, Chittagong, Sylhet, Rangpur, Rajshahi, Barisal, Khulna and Mymensingh and other city corporations and district headquarters. The Home Ministry issued a notice in this regard. At least 20 people were killed and hundreds of people got injured in renewed clashes amongst protesters, members of law enforcement agencies and members of ruling party-backed organizations in Dhaka, Kumila, Rangpur, Kishorganj, Sirajganj, Pabna, Munshiganj and Magura on Sunday. The organizers of anti-discrimination student movement who spearheaded the quota reform protests began a countrywide non-cooperation movement on Sunday to protest the recent killings and press home their one-point demand, which is resignation of the government. Mobile internet has been shut down again on Sunday on the instructions of the Bangladesh Telecommunication Regulatory Commission. According to the United News of Bangladesh, the Telecom Regulatory Commission has announced that the 4G network will remain off until further notice. During this period, only 2G services will be available for making calls. And DD India correspondent in Dhaka, Naval Singh Parmar, now joins us live on the latest. Naval Singh, is the curfew expected to ease the situation in Dhaka and other parts where it's been imposed?
Well, today the protester announced for the non-cooperation movement across the country, and during that, since the morning, there were very thin traffic on the streets and roads of Dhaka. But as the day began, then nearly afternoon, the reports of clashes between the police and the protesters and the other law enforcement agencies and the government-backed organizations people. And due to that, many people lost their lives. And to prevent the escalating situation, the government imposed curfew from 6 p.m. today for the indefinite time, as well as the government declared public holiday for the next 3 days on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Earlier, there were a curfew. Curfew was going on here in Bangladesh since 18th of July. But as the situation were under control, not normal, but it was under control, so government relaxed curfew for earlier 2 hours, then 3 hours, then 7 hours, and today it was relaxed for at least 15 hours. But now the situation went out of control today afternoon, so government declared curfew for indefinite time. The protesters are demanding for and they have their one-point demand, and that is the resignation of Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League government. And earlier it was a 9-point demand, but yesterday there were a huge gathering at the central Shahid Minar of Dhaka in which more than thousands of people joined that gatherings. And during that gathering, the key coordinators of the protest movement announced for the mass movement or non-cooperation movement. And instead of 9-point demand, they raised their 1-point demand, and that is the resignation of the government. Students as well as the other people from all walks of life are coming in favor of the protester, and at the same time, political opposition like Bangladesh Nationalist Party are also in full support of the protester. They are also on the streets and road. But 2 days back, government banned the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami and its student wing as terming its terrorist organization. But they are also involved in the protest.
We'll leave it at that. And we understand that the Government of India has asked Indians there to stay alert and has also released a helpline number +88 130 76402 in case of emergencies. Thanks, Naval Singh, for joining us from Dhaka. Moving on, a United Nations delegation has started assessing the humanitarian situation in Sudan's Darfur region. Thousands of Sudanese displaced by the ongoing conflict, many of whom have sought refuge in Jebel Mara, west of Sudan, are facing acute hunger. DD India's Isabel Nakiria reports from Kampala.
The civilian authority in Sudan says it has provided information to the UN on the dire humanitarian crisis in the Darfur region. The UN delegation inspected the shelters in Golo in Sudan's Jebel Mara region and interacted with thousands of displaced people fleeing the conflict in North Darfur. Authorities say the Darfur region is facing severe food shortages because a large part of it is under the control of the Rapid Support Forces. The UN and other aid agencies have called for the safe opening of humanitarian corridors to allow aid to be delivered before the situation worsens to a famine. Isabel Nakiria in Kampala reporting for DD India.
Following last week's civil unrest, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, in his first public comments, called for a suspension of protests related to the cost of living crisis, suggesting that this would create an opportunity for dialogue. As per Amnesty International, at least 13 people were killed on the very first day of protests last Thursday. An outbreak of monkeypox in the Democratic Republic of Congo is raising concerns about the spread of the virus globally. Health officials in the Central African country are struggling to contain a new strain of the disease. The Congolese government recently approved the use of 2 monkeypox vaccines to try and stop the disease spread that was previously known as monkeypox, now mpox. DD India's Chris Okamringa has brought us this report from Kinshasa.
Health workers in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo detected a new strain of the mpox virus that is spreading rapidly in the region. The strain, known as Clade 1b, is reported to be deadlier than previous ones. Authorities fear the disease is spreading because many people are not seeking treatment.
The situation is very bad. We had expected to contain the disease by now, but it has continued spreading. One of the major reasons is that people are running away from us. They prefer getting treated by traditional doctors.
The DRC government recently approved the use of 2 mpox vaccines to curb the spread of the disease, which has claimed more than 400 lives since the start of this year. 8,000 doses are expected in the country in September.
The only way of preventing the spread of mpox is through vaccination. We are happy that our government authorized the use of vaccines in June. We have 2 vaccines that have been approved for people to use.
Mpox is a viral infection that spreads through close contact with infected people or wild animals. The disease is common in the forested areas of Central and West Africa. In 2022, a global outbreak of the disease affected more than 100 countries.
The first human case of mpox was discovered in the DRC in 1970. The viral infection has continued claiming lives in many remote areas of the country because health facilities do not have testing kits. The situation has been made worse by the refusal of some patients to seek medical care. Chris Sochamringa in Kinshasa, reporting for DD India.
And now all the updates from Paris Olympics 2024. India are into the semi-finals of Paris Olympics 2024 men's hockey after beating Great Britain by a shootout. India are 1 win away from a second successive medal at the Olympics. India's Lakshya Sen has lost in the semi-finals of men's singles badminton clash against world number 2 Victor Axelsen in straight games 20-22, 14-21. He was leading in the first game 16-20, leading 7-0 in the second game too. But Victor Axelsen showed his skills, grit and determination to make a comeback to beat the Indian in straight games. And he showed why he is reigning champion and world number 2. Lakshya will fight for bronze medal against Lee Zijia of Malaysia on Monday. That's all in this edition of DD India Live, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from DD India, from India and across the world on the mobile app DD India. And this app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. Manu Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.